Welcome to Jay Sekulow Live. This is Jordan Sekulow. As you know, the Supreme Court 5-4 said the New York ban on the gatherings at places of worship, churches, synagogues was unconstitutional. And they've taken the next step, too, in California as well. It's an order that came out, actually, from the Supreme Court. I'm holding it in my hands for people. It's very short on Facebook, Periscope, Parler, wherever you're watching. And it just says the application for injunctive relief presented to Justice Kagan and by her referred to the court is treated as a petition for a writ of cert, and the September 2nd order of the United States District Court for the Central District of California is vacated. The case is remanded to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit with instructions to remand to the district for further consideration in light of the case out of New York, Roman Catholic Diocese of Brooklyn versus Cuomo, where Cuomo lost, and New York lost that case, trying to ban houses of worship for having, again, their services with in-person services. So this is a huge win for all religious faiths in California, and I think it sends a signal, too. It's to the whole country now, because it's not the Supreme Court specific just to something happening in New York. They're applying what they did in New York, Dad, very broadly, and saying if you try to do even the similar thing in California, can't do it. We also have one in Illinois. We filed a brief there. Yep. It's going to come down exactly the same way, and that is not because it is because specifically of the addition of Justice Barrett.
Yeah, so what's interesting here is we have a case in California that's directly impacted by this. We represent Calvary Chapel, Fort Bragg, a California nonprofit church, and River of Life Church. We sued Gavin Newsom. We did this with, as the American Center for Law and Justice, with our friend Robert Tyler from Advocates for Faith and Freedom. So we both filed that. And we've been waiting for an order from the court there. What is interesting now, in light of the decision last week, 5-4, and then this week, and what's so fascinating about this application was presented to Justice Kagan, and it was Justice Kagan who then referred it to the court. The court then said that the application for an injunctive relief, in other words, to stop the prohibitions against the churches, is treated as a petition for certiorari, even though judgment had not been rendered. That's unusual. And the petition is granted. The September 2nd order of the United States District Court for the Central District of California is vacated. The case is remanded in light of consideration of Roman Catholic Diocese of Brooklyn versus Cuomo, which was decision last week. Harry, this is a really good sign for religious freedom.
Absolutely. So if you look at today's order, and if you look at the November 25th order by the United States Supreme Court, it is clear beyond question that the Supreme Court is creating a pattern in strong support of religious liberty. Indeed, even if you look at the November 25th decision involving the Roman Catholic Diocese of New York versus Cuomo, it's important to keep in mind that that decision with respect to religious liberty is even stronger because both Justice Roberts and Justice Breyer, who voted in the minority, strongly supported the notion of religious liberty, and they even believed that Cuomo's restrictions likely violated the First Amendment.
So you've got to see that you've got a supermajority now, in a sense, very committed to religious liberty. And while this is significant, and it is very significant, as these other cases go up, I think they're going to be summarily handled. I think this is, Jordan, it's exactly how they're going to handle them. And this is exactly why you need to be supporting the work of the American Center for Law and Justice.
It's why you get these lawsuits in across the country, as we've done. We've represent the churches in California, in Illinois, because it's not just specific to what happened in New York. The court is now saying what happened in New York, this is what's going to happen in every country, but you have to bring us a challenge. That's the key, is you've got a state that has shut down in-person worship. You've got to bring us a challenge, and we'll then instruct the courts to use our reasoning out of the case in New York and open back up these places of worship.
Don't go away. We've got a lot more ahead.
Welcome back to Jay Sekulow Live. If you're just joining us, you need to know the Supreme Court, because of the confirmation of Justice Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court, Justice Barrett has shifted the court. Remember, Chief Justice Roberts was part of the court's majority denying the appeals of places of worship when they were fighting back against these orders to shut down and have no in-person worship. And he was with the four liberals, and he still is. With the three liberals. He now sides with, when it was the court was in an 8 justice, or when Justice Ginsburg was there, was with the 4 liberals. Now he's with the 3 liberals. But Justice Barrett has changed the makeup of how the court sees religious liberty, and specifically the First Amendment. We saw that in the case in New York, now in California, and we're going to see it across the country. No more will these governors be able to trample on the constitutional rights of Americans. And one of those rights, of course, is the right to worship, and of course to the free exercise of religion. And again, they are saying that these rulings by the governors, these edicts by governors, to randomly decide who can go in person and who can't, you cannot do that to places of worship. They are specifically protected under the Constitution. That is a huge shift in the court. And it took the confirmation of Justice Barrett to get to that shift. I mean, that's how important that getting that nomination through and done was. It was so important, and we're already seeing the ramifications.
Well, Donald Trump got 3 justices confirmed to the Supreme Court of the United States in basically 3.5 years, and then hundreds in the lower courts. So you got to talk about lasting legacy. I mean, this is a lasting legacy. Now, the question's going to be, I'm going to go to Fan on this. They're even getting nominations through right now. I saw this morning that there's nominations going. What's the latest on that?
Yeah, nominations actually being reported out of the Senate Judiciary Committee as we speak, Jay. So additional nominees, by the way, including the replacement for Justice Barrett on the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals. So all the way to the very end of the term, the Senate Judiciary Committee and the Senate floor are processing these nominees. As we speak, Jay, it's 229 federal judges that have been confirmed. That number is going to go up, and I would just say it very clear. I mean, we say it on this broadcast all the time. Judges and justices matter, but in this case, Jay, it's literally the difference between a win and a loss and whether or not churches across this country are going to be treated on even par with restaurants, bars, and nightclubs. That's how important judges and justices are.
Let's go ahead and take a call now. Let's get one out of the way.
Yeah, let's go to Karen in New Mexico on line 4. Hey, Karen, welcome to Jay Sekulow Live.
Hi, Karen.
Thank you. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your efforts. Our state has been under almost total lockdown since March. We have a very ambitious Democrat governor who is working really hard to get noticed by the National Party. Our churches have suffered. What do we do?
Well, let me ask you this, Karen. Are the Walmarts and these stores open in your community? The Lowe's, those kind of stores?
Absolutely. Walmart, she did recently shut down some of the chain grocery stores. There were a few that didn't meet the...
that was it, not meeting the individual standard. For instance, are amusements open? Bowling alleys, gyms, are they open?
They have been. I believe they're closed now.
Okay, so she's rolling back some restrictions because of the increase in COVID. Look, it should be what goes for Walmarts and Sam's and Costco should go for the church. That's my view. It's a simple test. It's the Walmart-Costco test, I'll call it. Yeah. It's that simple.
And so, Karen, what it takes one of those churches to file the challenge. Maybe it's your church specifically, because what the Supreme Court has set up is basically said, bring us your case.
And bring us your case, of them quickly.
And we're going to handle it quickly for you. And you can have in-person worship, and the governors can't do this. So I've been out in New Mexico during this lockdown. Karen is right. It is almost hard to imagine how locked down places like Albuquerque are, when basically the only people you see on the street are frontline workers, like when there's a shift of doctors and nurses. But again, we're months into this, and like you said, you can still go to the Walmart, you can still go to the grocery store, but you can't go to church. The Supreme Court has said no more to that. No more to that. And you just got to, but you have to bring the challenge to the court. So you've got to get a church in New Mexico that says, we'll bring the challenge. We will challenge the state, and it will quickly get to the Supreme Court, and they will be victorious. They will win. They will win with just a paragraph from the court. I mean, that's all it will take.
Yeah, and we just filed a brief in a case, the Romanian Pentecostal Church and Logos Baptist Church against Governor Pritzker in Illinois. Let me tell you what we wrote in the beginning. We said, review is necessary here for all the reasons set forth in the petition for certiorari. Additionally, amicus argues, that's us, urges this court to grant summary reversal of the Seventh Circuit ruling that Order 32 did not unconstitutionally target religion by limiting religious worship to 10 persons while imposing no limits with respect to other activities in the same churches. So a church could have a community meeting, Harry, with, I'm sure, restrictions, but not a 10 limit. If it's a church service, though, it's a 10 limit. The Supreme Court's going to clearly I mean, I don't think, is there any doubt where they're ruling on this? I mean,
No, I don't think so. But I also think that these rulings by the United States Supreme Court should be perfectly obvious to a competent governor. They cannot discriminate against religion. It's clearly protected by the United States Constitution, but they fail to understand that.
Yep. Let's go ahead and take another call.
Yeah,
Joe.
Layla in California on line 3. Hey, Layla, welcome to Jay Sekulow Live.
Hi, guys. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I donate when I can
Thank you.
because I know how hard. My point is that the majority of cases are in fast food and government buildings. I think they should take a page from the churches and see how they're working to keep their people safe.
Yeah.
It's a hypocrisy. And I have one more.
Yep.
One more issue that I want to
Hang on, before you give us your other issue, I'll go back to a second. I want to underscore something you said. I think the Supreme Court has made it clear and is making it clear line by line, sentence by sentence, and case by case, that there's not a First Amendment exception for churches during a pandemic, that they have to be treated like other buildings, other facilities, and the numbers just cannot be made up by these governors who said you could have a 10,000 seat arena, Harry, and we'll go back to Layla in a minute, a 10,000 seat worship center, but you can only have 10 people there. I mean, it doesn't even make sense.
So on the face, many of these restrictions are absolutely absurd, but consistent with your point, Jay, as a factual matter in the case involving the Roman Catholic Diocese in New York, the churches and the synagogue, they have maintained all precautionary measures, and they have operated at 25% or 33% capacity for months without a single outbreak of the coronavirus.
So a big win out of the Supreme Court. You knew about the win out of New York, where the court 5-4 said no, Cuomo and the state, you cannot impose these restrictions on in-person worship, whether it is a synagogue or a church or another place of worship. There is a constitutional right there in the First Amendment, and you cannot trample on that. Well, that is now involves California. So California's similar challenge. They get the order, and now this is against Newsom. So first it was Cuomo, now Newsom. This is all it took from the Supreme Court the second time. Half a page. So if you're in a state, now we represent churches in California, we represent churches in Illinois. The Supreme Court is making the indication very clear publicly that they're not trying to do this like state by state, case by case basis. They're saying nationally, you cannot tell churches to do this. So if your church brings the case against the governor and your state has one of those lockdown rules where there's no in-person worship, the Supreme Court is striking those restrictions down nationwide. But you have to, the Supreme Court, to do that, has to do it state by state. They've got to have the cases brought to them, and we're bringing them out of Illinois now. And I think a lot of other states are going to start doing that too. But remember, it's not every state that's done this either. It's the Newsoms, it's the Cuomos, it's the New Mexicos, it's the bluest of blue states.
Somebody on Facebook I just saw one of the comments flash by, said that in Minnesota, I guess, they have some casinos, and most of the people there are elderly, and they're operating about 60% capacity.
Yeah.
And those are operating. The church can have 10 people. This tells you how absurd this is. Now, we also need to say that, obviously, the addition of Amy Barrett as Justice Barrett has made a big difference on the Supreme Court of the United States. We know that we've got a stay in place from the Pennsylvania litigation on the election. That's still in place. We have a stay in place for the financial records of the president. That is still in place. That's been a month. And then we know today that nominees to fill Amy Barrett's spots are being discussed or maybe even voted on.
Yeah, the spot that was vacated on the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, that nominee is being voted out of committee, and the intention is to confirm him on the floor of the Senate maybe as soon as next week, Jay. I would add just maybe one thing to your substantive discussion about, this is what we've argued from the very beginning, that a First Amendment restriction should be the last to be imposed and the first to roll back. But, Jay, I just want people to understand this very clearly. There's also a strategic, tactical reason why we've argued all across the country. It's for this exact scenario. So when you get one good ruling in New York, Jay, our ruling in California, it's ready to go. That's why you spread out. That's why you make good legal strategy, good tactics, so you can't get this nationwide impact.
But let me say something. We have been arguing these cases before the Supreme Court of the United States for 4 decades. Let me repeat the number. In the 80s, in the 90s, in the 2000s, in the 2010s, and now in the 2020s. 5 decades. Now, the early part of 5 decades, I'm not that old, but for 4 full decades and 5 going into the 5th decade. And it's been precedent upon precedent. And then as justices shift, things happen. In cases you argued in 1990, where they said you cannot discriminate against a church's viewpoint or the positions they're advocating in public access. Those same principles are what's now being applied, Harry, right here during the coronavirus.
Absolutely. And your analysis is very spot on, because there are up to 20 lawsuits involving houses of worship that are pending and could be affected by the Supreme Court's decision-making, particularly last week. And then it has followed up on that decision with today's decision involving California.
Go ahead and take Paris online, too.
Hey, Paris, calling from North Carolina. Welcome to Jay Sekulow Live.
Thank you guys so much for the work that you're doing. There's lots of people that I can know that I've spoken to directly that are praying for y'all, praying for our country, praying for our president, his legal team. Mine is more of a statewide question in regards to the governor's what we consider unconstitutional executive orders. And I know of churches and small businesses that do want to stand up, and they don't know how to find legal representation, and they feel like they'll be swallowed up by the system.
Well, they're not. Look, I mean, Calvary Chapel in California didn't get swallowed up by the system. We're representing them, and now the Supreme Court order is going to directly impact them. Harvest Rock Church in California did not get swallowed up by the system. The Supreme Court just issued an order in their favor. Elam Romanian Pentecostal Church and Logos Baptist Church in Illinois, they didn't get swallowed up by the system. They just got a great order from the Supreme Court of the United States. So go to aclj.org to our helpline and get those churches to fill it out, and we can get them representation. Because, Harry, the court is making it clear here on this religious liberty issue. They could not be clearer.
Absolutely. And the court is simplifying the cases because it's issued a major order last week in the New York case.
Right.
And now it's following that up with 1-paragraph orders in California, more likely than not, with respect to the 20 lawsuits involving houses of worship that are currently pending. The Supreme Court can issue some summary orders with respect to those cases. And as new cases are filed, guess what? Then district courts and courts of appeals, they will catch on to what the Supreme Court effectively has said, and some of these cases can be settled perhaps without ever going to the United States Supreme Court.
I think that's what we do now is we just take the court order and we march it around the country. So, folks, if you've got issues on this and you're a church and you're trying to figure out how you're going to function, contact us, aclj.org help. You do it right online. Than Bennett in Washington. With COVID, things are still moving. People need to understand that, and our teams are fully engaged.
Yeah, still moving. And in fact, the president has been active on this today, Jay, still engaging with Speaker Pelosi, still engaging with the United States Senate, looking to move another package, another stimulus relief package. But, Jay, I just want to echo something you said a minute ago, just in case people mention this. You mentioned the states of California, Illinois, and New York. Can you think of more unfriendly jurisdictions where this decision that came down is now applicable? California, Illinois, and New York. Not exactly red states, Jay.
No, listen, I'm thrilled with the Supreme Court news, and I'll tell you what it tells me. Amy Barrett is a force to be reckoned with, and Justice Alito, Justice Thomas, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh are now the center of the power base, if you will, of the conservative movement on the court. Conservative judicial philosophy. It makes John Robert, he could end up in perpetual dissent here. I don't know.
I think it might be on the religious liberty issues like this, where you have a federal constitutional protection. It should always trump state actions. Always.
Let's take another call.
And now finally, we have a 5-justice majority who agrees that the free exercise clause actually means something. That's something new since 1970.
Yeah. No, this is a big, big win.
Barbara in California, on line 3. Hey, Barbara, welcome to Jay Sekulow Live.
Last call of the day. Barbara, go ahead. You're on the air.
Hello. I appreciate you guys so much. But can the Supreme Court also protect
businesses in California? Does the Constitution protect them? They call them non-essential. This governor here, Newsom, we're done with him. We have over 800,000 signatures to recall him. We need 1.5. We're done with him, though. And can the Constitution protect small businesses?
So it's not as clear. So it's not as clear as saying, you know, we have the free exercise clauses in the First Amendment, and business is not. You know, small business, large business. I think though there is a claim to be made to this court now that we see how they're ruling on the issue of religious free exercise of religion, is that if you're going to allow these big box stores, basically, not to beat up on them, but if you're going to allow grocery stores to open and let people in the store, if you're going to allow Walmart to open and let people in, then the small business should be treated the same way. And there's an equal protection claim that could be made there at a federal level.
I think that's exactly right. So it would not be under the religion clauses of the First Amendment. It's not as clear cut. But Harry, I think there's a legitimate equal protection argument that could be made by these small businesses.
I think you're precisely correct, and I think Jordan's analysis is spot on. It's clear beyond question that in many jurisdictions, the states are treating different businesses differently. And so in some states, they are making arbitrary and capricious decisions with respect to which businesses are called essential. And so to the extent that that's going on, then that provides a legal and constitutional basis to challenge the decision in federal court. And I certainly would applaud smaller businesses when and if they challenge state decisions that basically allow large businesses to operate and perhaps expose hundreds of people, if not thousands of people per day. And then they're saying to a small business owner, guess what? You need to stand down.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. All right, let me encourage you to do this. Support the work of the ACLJ. We are in the very beginning of our monthly challenge for December. So any amount you donate to us at aclj.org is matched. And it's matched until December 31st. So we had an unbelievably great month in November. December's had a great start. So your support of the ACLJ supports this broadcast on radio, on TV, on YouTube, on Twitter. I mean, on multiple platforms. Of course, ACLJ website. And then, of course, also the legal work around the world. ACLJ.org to have your gift doubled.
I was at a board meeting at Jews for Jesus, and the executive director said, we've got a case. The Supreme Court had just granted review. It was about literature distribution at airports.
We wanted to have the Bible study meet in the school, but it turned into a problem when the principal said, no, you can't have it.
I told her that I wanted to sing Noel, and she said, the principal said that we can't have anything to do with Christ in our songs.
We marched around the country defending evangelism in Chicago, in Boston, in New York, Atlanta, Texas, Southern California, Northern California, and points in between.
We got a letter one evening from the IRS saying they wanted all this information that we all knew immediately was not right.
How do you fight the government? How do you fight the IRS?
Tea Party groups say they're being targeted by the Internal Revenue Service, and they're enlisting the aid of the American Center for Law and Justice.
They were trying to shut groups down that they disagreed with. This was very, very serious.
The federal courts do not need to become monitors of state trespass actions, and that's all this is.
We were looking for the right to speak our minds and our consciences, and we won that right today.
Religious persecution is a situation where your life is literally put in jeopardy simply because of what you believe.
Can you help? Can you do something? He's on death row, and so we launched an international campaign.
His freedom now rests solely on diplomatic efforts by the United States government and world leaders dedicated to human rights.
The release of Andrew Brunson. He is the American evangelical from North Carolina, held in Turkey for more than 2 years.
There was an Air Force plane that came from Germany that had been on standby. We're flying and they finally left Turkish airspace. It's like, okay, we're really out of Turkey and free again.